So you're all from startups in Spain. We're looking very much at opportunities in this country, and obviously it's a very uncertain field. But Marc, maybe you want to take that, introduce yourself, and take a little bit of that question about what are the peculiar challenges of being a startup in this field in this country?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Marc Manzano. I head the quantum security group at Sandbox AQ. I work from Spain, but actually Sandbox AQ
is a much bigger organization.
It's a US-based company. We were kind of created within Google, incubated for a few years there. And then we spun out at the beginning of this year. And we're mainly focused on three main areas right now. And this is linked to the opportunity. There are two areas in which I'm not an expert in, but I know how to describe at a high level. One is simulation and optimization. And then here we use quantum-inspired algorithms as other companies. In our case, mainly targeted to drug discovery and material science. And we're working with big pharma on this. On the second area that we focus on is on quantum sensing. And we have a really strong team building a really cool medical device to improve the way that we measure ECG nowadays. We already have a prototype, and it's already being tested in hospitals. So I think that obviously there is a huge challenge, and there is a lot of uncertainty in there. But the opportunity to improve, at least on these specific areas in terms of pharma and in terms of healthcare and measurement and detecting anomalies, it's extremely exciting. So it's something worth trying and investing on. And then third is the area in which I work at, which is cybersecurity, but in the quantum context. And maybe I can describe a bit more the opportunities there later on.
In a little bit. And Victor, we spoke the other day somewhat about the peculiar challenges of being in Spain and staying in Spain with a company that's growing, and if it grows so fast, are there temptations to move it, or do you feel you get the support here to carry on growing?
Right, so interesting question. So first of all, very quickly, we are a Barcelona-based startup. We are in quantum computing. We are a spin-off from 3 different research centers in supercomputing, in basic physics, and in algorithms. So the question is, why would a Spanish-based startup be able to succeed in this, in this wild west of quantum computing, especially when we have all the big players, right? Google. And IBM, and everybody else that you can think of are very big players which are investing heavily in this area. I think part of the answer is that it's very early days. It's been discussed before, right? I mean, this technology is still coming out of academia. It is not a given which of the different technologies is going to come out as the winner, what kind of qubits, and for what kind of use cases, and what is the calendar, and what is the quality, and all of those things. So I think it's a very good time for startups. Startups that are very closely linked to academia, that monitoring and work very closely with academia, make sure that we bring some of the ideas out into industry. And this is something that you can do anywhere, right? So Spain is, as we all know, is an example of what happens in Europe. Spain is a country with a high age index from the academic point of view, right, in terms of researchers, papers, citations, and what have you. We have very good researchers. It's not the only country with good researchers, but we do have very good researchers. So we are about number 11 in the world in terms of comparing countries with this index. And this applies also into the quantum realm. But when you look at the economy, we are kind of number 16. And when you look at the Global Innovation Index, which is what the World Patent Organization publishes to compare innovation in different countries, we are number 30. Okay, so we are way, way below. And so for a startup in quantum in Spain today, the opportunity is we have great researchers, we can benefit from that, we can leverage that. Which are the challenges? The challenges, first of all, has to do with with funding. Funding because we don't have an ecosystem in Spain of investors that really are focusing on deep tech in a big way, and within deep tech into quantum, because it's something very new and as has been mentioned before, with a long calendar for maturity. So that's one issue. The second one, I will stop here. The second one is making sure that we attract and we retain the best talent, because talent is a constraint. We need good physicists, we need good engineers, we need good computer scientists. It all comes together because we're moving from science into engineering. So Spain is very attractive because we have good weather, it's a good place to live in. Barcelona is a fantastic city, but this is not good enough because nowadays, and especially after the pandemic, what's happening is that we have all become globalized, and we all work from home, and we all work with our computers. Not the guys in the lab, but everybody else. And therefore, you end up having large corporations or very big startups from other countries that offer great salaries for somebody that can continue living in Spain, but being paid with a very large salary. So anyhow, this is some of the challenges, and I'm sure we'll get back to all of this.
Really key questions. But Esperanza, you moved into a startup months ago.
That's right, yeah.
Tell me about, there you are, talent going into a startup.
Yeah.
Tell me about the attraction and what it's meant to you and what you now perceive, having been in a different world so recently.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is actually in strategy consulting and finance, and I spent my career then until recently, when in March I joined Multiverse Computing, which is Spain-based. Now I think we are more on the scale-up spectrum, and we are the biggest European quantum software and quantum applications. Recently I learned that we are already 80 people. And yeah, we have some intersections with your work, so maybe in different sectors. And all we care about is the practical applications of quantum computing and delivering value now. That is what we care about in a broad spectrum of sectors. We started in finance, but now we have moved to others, such as manufacturing and also energy. And also we are hoping to enter other sectors as well. But we are diversifying. The point is that we are diversifying ourselves. Also space, and I'm thrilled to have here Antonio, which hopefully we will tangibilize the collaboration soon. So, coming to your question, for me, I came from the corporate world to the startup world or scale-up world, and for me, it has to do that I felt it was the right place for me to do what I wanted to do, which is to work in the intersection of quantum technologies, strategy, and practical applications of all of these to create tangible value, not only for companies, but for societies and economies as a whole. And what I find differently, it is that I feel now more autonomous to do what I want to do. That is, for me, the most significant change.
And Carlos, you founded, I think, 2 technology companies, is that already? And this is your world, but tell me the attraction again, and the attraction of being in Spain, staying in Spain, what you see the importance of.
Yep. So as Victor, we are a spin-off company of a research center. It's called ICFO in Barcelona. So we're naturally Spanish domiciled, right? So we come out from research where we developed a lot of technology. I like the keyword uncertainty. So we make a living out of selling uncertainty. So, probably that was not meant as that purpose. Sorry, I think it's too close. So being in Spain for us is very natural. We have a lot of people we can recruit that knows what we do in photonics. And as Victor, I concur that one of the challenges, and also connecting to what Jose Ignacio said before, the funding dimension is extremely important, right? And in this country, it makes us a little bit in a disadvantage. And what Jose Ignacio said, the implication is speed, right? So we typically need to move probably at a slower speed than we could if we were in other regions. But look, that is a challenge, and we're happy to take that challenge. And there are instruments and people are really mobilizing resources now to, close the funding gap here in Spain. So hopefully that materializes. And the implication is we can move faster and more aggressively into markets and with customers and deploying stuff.
Yeah, and Carlos' point strongly resonates with me because, for example, for us, we are scaling now very, very fast because speed is everything to us. So, and yeah, that also ties with the financial side of things. Also tied to the investment culture, and something that we find is that it's sort of difficult as well to find financial instruments and financial products that are adapted to the reality of startups and scale-ups in Spain and probably in Europe. And also seeing signs that might be starting to change. And I think that is very good for the whole ecosystem, not only in Spain, but in the country. Because, I mean, if we are not competitive at that level, in the financial side of things, others will be. And you can limit investment through regulation only so far.
Right, so I wanted to add, I've responded before to which are the issues, right? So let me speak about from the positive side. So the positive side is that quantum, because it's in very early days, I think there is an opportunity for countries such as Spain, also the Netherlands and many other countries in Europe, small countries, to actually make a difference, to actually create an ecosystem that is going to be very competitive. And, there's an example of, to some extent, of having done this before in a different area, and it is in biotech. In biotech, 15, 20 years ago, Spain was not a player, right? There were some very bright researchers, but they were not really, there was not an ecosystem of startups and investors that were really active and understood the business. This has changed. So we have several cities in metropolitan areas in Spain where we have strong biotech industry. It's maybe not the same as in Oxford or Cambridge or in Boston, but it's very competitive. And I think quantum has the opportunity of replicating this success from my point of view, because we have the infrastructure, we have the research centers, we have the scientists, people are very excited. And beyond that, we have the challenge of the funding, but this, of course, is being developed. In any case, the world has become much more globalized, so investors from other countries logically come in. So we have the challenge with the local ones, but maybe we can benefit from the foreign ones. So the bottom line is, I think in the next 10 years from now, if you have another of these events in 10 years from now, and you look back and say, yes, we did it in biotech, we also did it in quantum. So I see this as a very positive possibility.
Yeah, so taking it to my area of expertise, which is cybersecurity. So probably in Spain, we've missed some technological waves in the past. But if there is a wave that for sure we can excel at is at cybersecurity and at quantum technologies, because we have really good cybersecurity talent. We have really good leading worldwide cybersecurity companies already that demonstrate and have the credentials. And we also produce a lot of really good talent that comes from physics. So I think that we have a really good opportunity to actually create a really strong ecosystem joining both fields, the cybersecurity and quantum technologies, and then see how can we produce solutions that can allow customers to communicate securely and privately in a quantum context, both with digital networks that we are using nowadays, but also within a quantum infrastructure in the future once that's ready, right? But to do so, I think that there is a slight difference with respect to government institutions here in Spain and in other places in Europe and the US. And sometimes governments are really useful for pushing some changes by instrumenting regulations and by defining regulations and recommending certain steps that need to be taken care of. In particular, in cybersecurity, when we're looking at national security and critical infrastructure protection, there have to be some initiatives coming from the government. And the US government is a perfect example of that. And it's leading the way towards making all US federal agencies migrate towards quantum-resistant communications. France, Germany, and UK are also really good examples of that. And in Spain, we're lagging a bit behind. So that could be one really good action item, actually, because we just lack that small push in order to spark a lot of opportunities on the business side there.
So one of the points that's been made from Jose Ignacio first thing this morning was about the amount of talent there is in Spain. Do you find yourselves, when it comes to hiring talent, in competition with companies in the United States or Germany to keep people in Spain? Are you discovering that, or is that not a problem?
So I would say the answer is yes. So we've had those sort of cases. But I would say as well that in our specific case, everything that has to do with photonics and quantum people and talent, I mean people that have done a PhD or come up from physics or has a master in photonics or quantum technologies, we are a good place for people to develop their careers in Spain. And there is a lot of people that want to stay here. We can attract people as well. So on that perspective, I feel we're good at attracting and retaining people. But that is not the only thing that company needs, right? There is a lot of surrounding infrastructure, more generic engineering, electronics, digital engineering, software. That is also a challenge. And that talent is really a lot more competitive at a global scale, because with remote work, now you can work from any place in the world, right? So we do hardware, and when you need to connect cables, you need to be in the lab. So there is a very strong local presence on the hardware side, and goes in our favor.
Yeah, regarding talent, I think there are, let's say, two, or at the very least, the way that I see, two main components of that. One component is what we plant now is what we will harvest in the future. So we are talking now about education and why this is critical. And also my personal view of mine is that we need to have more quantum programs at universities, and not only at the PhD level. And I also saw in the States, impulsed by MIT professor William Oliver and others, the development of a quantum engineer program for universities. And I would love to see these as well in Spain. That is one side. And then, of course, education also at the corporate level. And this is, in a sense, an example of that. And I'm thrilled to see so many people from so many backgrounds learning about quantum and asking questions, and that shows the interest. That is another view. So corporations and businesses can make informed decisions, and they can speak quantum. The other part is what we are talking about, the talent, which is you generate that through education. And also, you have to attract that to your companies. So you need to establish an attractive ecosystem for people to come to work to you in a globalized world. And also from my experience, in general, there are three factors that correlate very strongly with why people choose to relocate eventually. And is the education system that there is in the particular place, and specifically having international schools, and then having a good airport, and here in Spain, ideally a high-speed train as well. When a city has these three elements, like for example Malaga is a great example, then they are able to attract talent from all around the world. And I'm also speaking about Malaga because they have a very nice cybersecurity center impulsed by Google.
Yeah, so just to add to this, so on the first part of what you said, in terms of training, we have decided to spend some of our time contributing to two kinds of master's degrees. One is a quantum master's degree with the other universities, including the center where you're a spin-off of. So we think that's very important to actually to contribute to getting all these, every year, like 30 to 50 young engineers which have been trained on a master's degree. But also we're contributing to a postdoc degree. A postdoc means it is not physicists that want to have a career in quantum technologies, but these are engineers, which are computer scientists, which are other STEM students that want to come into the industry and they want to learn about quantum, although they're not quantum physicists. So we spend time doing that. We should not need to do that, but we are doing it because it's very important. At the same time, it's very easy to attract students. They're all in love with quantum, with this magic of quantum, right? They all. So that's one comment. And then in terms of the working with industry, there was a comment done before by one of the previous speakers that said that when vendors do these questionnaires, surveys about which companies are doing quantum, right? And it turns out that everybody's doing quantum or looking at quantum, right? But when you speak with the actual companies, they say nobody's doing quantum, right? But I think maybe we're looking at it from 2 points of view. So clearly, from a CIO point of view, from a production point of view, basically nobody's doing quantum. They might begin to be concerned about crypto agility and post-quantum, and some people might want to try out quantum key distribution, some people. But I would say that a majority of, at least in our experience, a majority of the large corporations, including here in Spain, large corporations have not in the CIO area, but in the innovation, in the corporate innovation team, which is kind of hidden from, it's not in the day-to-day of the operations of the company. We have met a lot of individuals. Typically, these are small teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and this is at large banks, at large energy companies, large logistics companies. They all know that this is going to hit them from the point of view, and we are not in cybersecurity. We are, from the computing side. So people are interested, like I'm sure in your case, people want to understand what is the economic advantage of using some of these quantum-inspired or quantum computers that exist today, these famous NISQ machines. Are they useful or not? But people want to become quantum ready. So we see a high percentage of people that say we want to become quantum ready. We want to do maybe a proof of concept. We want to spend some of our time playing around with this, because eventually we want to do a pilot, and eventually we'll run this. So we need to, as startups, we need to contribute to with large organizations like this forum here, and with the large consulting companies, and with the large vendors that are very active in this field, to actually make sure that this message percolates through the system, that people say, we really need to understand this, because this is going to become an important aspect.
So I don't want to be the only one asking questions, and I would like to ask one who I know is eager.
Just one question, and you started answering my question already, but I understand you were born with a global approach, so your customers might be anywhere, but how do you see Spain from the business side? To create an ecosystem, you need talent, you need funding, but you need customers, right? How do you see in particular, the Spanish businesses in terms of quantum compared with their peers, or Europe, or the US, or other regions?
So in Spain, we have this tradition. There's this Spanish saying that one of our philosophers expressed 100 years ago that said, "Que inventen ellos." Let them invent, and we'll just do our own thing. We don't need to waste our time. So there's a certain inertia, I think, comparing Spain in general, from my point of view, with the rest with Northern Europe and with North America and with Asia, of course, about being less inventive and less adventurous. But this is kind of a little bit of the background. But they are, in fact, extremely modern and very effective and competitive organization in Spain in the banking industry. Clearly, Bank Inter and also Caixa and some of the other big banks, I think historically have been always in the forefront of using new technology in the banking industry. And you see like Zara, right? Zara in northwestern Spain is #1 or #2 in the apparel business, in the fashion business worldwide, right? And that is based on their logistics. And logistics is based on a lot of computation. And the kind of computation they do has a lot to do with optimization. And quantum can really help them, right? So there are these companies which are very forward-thinking, which are based in headquarters in Spain. Typically, they are multinational, and that they're very, very open to try, and they are the drivers. And I think we as startups need to to hook up to these engines, because it's easier to get to the local ones because we're all in the same country, we speak the same language, we get to know each other more easier. But of course, beyond that, we need to be visible in other countries so that when we speak with people in the Netherlands, in Finland, in Sweden, in the UK, wherever, that they know, okay, all of them have very bright startups in their own countries, but we are a European company that can help them, and I think Multiverse is a very clear example of that. And we are in our own size. We're a very small company. We are about 20 people. We are building an analog quantum computer to be dedicated to certain specific problems. So not a universal problem, but certain problems, but do it with real quantum benefits, and to do this earlier than most of the others. That's what we are trying to do. But we are, at the same time, we are beginning to work with customers to understand their use cases that will run well on this machine, and in the meantime, we help them to become quantum ready. And we've actually met some of these customers in our country, but also in Italy and in France. So it is doable. I think we have the opportunity. I think it's because it's early days, it's very young. All the players in quantum tend to be very young, not necessarily myself, but most of my colleagues, and so I think the young generations really have a very good chance of making this a success. And let me just add at the end that in doing this, all of these companies, all of us need to have ecosystems with other companies that we work with, because we all need bits and pieces from other companies that we don't build. We are building chips and we are building algorithms, but there's a whole world around it. There's the electronics, there's the cryogenics, there's the cryogenic cabling, there's all kind of stuff. And all of this, today we're working with other European startups. And in closing, this ecosystem is important because we were born with a European program, and the European programs are very attractive because they force European academics and European startups to work together with some public funding. And I think that's the way how we were born, and I think that's the way that we need to develop, to continue working with all these other, in our case, startups and academics to actually get complemented.
Marc, you've been nodding particularly during that, and I'd love you to follow up, but also to invite everybody else as this conversation goes on to ask your own questions. And did I see one already down there? Yes, Stephanie, sorry. Go ahead.
Hello, I actually had a very similar question. So coming from Germany, I was quite a bit involved with the German quantum computing initiative and setting everything up and the planning to build the ecosystem, and also know some other European countries. Can you kind of summarize what's special in Spain and what probably other European countries could learn from Spain in that regard? Well,
I would say that in Spain, like in any other country, there are certain areas of really very good expertise. There are certain centers of academia that's like in photonics and in other areas which are world-class. And so, every country has their own centers. France has a lot of great research centers, Germany has. And so the question is, how do you build up out of what you have? So how do you maximize the results out of these centers? This is one. Beyond that, I would say we have a good education system, but okay, so the Netherlands also has a good, so it's not the only country that has a good education center. We do, but so that's not necessarily different. So I think it really, at the end of the day, depends on individuals. They're centers of excellence in academia that not only are good in developing science, but that have this vision and this willingness and this mindset to actually step out and say, let's really help these startups and let's attract people, and this kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and it kind of builds up. So I wouldn't say it's different to other places. It depends on the individuals coming from certain academic centers that are particularly good. We have to fight against many, like Jose Ignacio was saying before. By the way, Jose Ignacio is one of our co-founders in our company. He's now based in Singapore, so he's acting as an advisor. But we always are inspired by what he has to say. And he also always speaks, and I agree, about bureaucracy, right? So we need to work around it somehow, right? And So let me finish by saying, and I see Thierry here in the audience.
Right, and I was hoping also we get Marc you as well now on this, what's special about Spain, because I've been watching you.
No. The only thing I was nodding on is on the bureaucratic part, because I've been working with Jose Ignacio also for a few years, and we've been working in the Middle East, and now working also on the US side. And I see the differences on certain processes between all these regions.
Specify, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think that there has to be something that we can do in order to speed things up and make things much more lean and suitable for companies to reach to certain funding opportunities without actually being buried in bureaucracy. So I think that's really important.
Did you want to add something, Esperanza?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more on these points. I think that we need, as Marc is very rightly saying, streamline these processes, make them competitive at a global scale, and also having mechanism for funding for the reality of startups. Now, to build those mechanisms, I also believe there needs to happen a cultural change. And one of those mechanisms, for example, that I'm particularly fond of is the concept of an evergreen fund. And for example, Oxford University has a very good one of these. And an evergreen fund, what basically does is that it takes the pressure of the exit out of the equation, in a sense that an evergreen fund, what it does is we are here for the long term. So, of course, you need to present results, but we won't be, if you allow me the expression, the slaves of the exit. We are thinking a very long term. So that, of course, for technologies such as quantum, I think is very interesting. And I'm hoping those mechanisms will come to more prevalent in Europe and in Spain as well, in combination with others as well.
Eden, go ahead.
So funding has been mentioned a couple of times. Just to give perspective, Israel is about a fifth of the size of Spain and has 5 times the amount of funding of Spain, which is like 25x, is almost insane. Europe is definitely less known for deep tech investing, right? Definitely on the academia side, but less so on company building side. And what I wonder is, looking at defense as a subsidizer of such technology, right? Quantum sensing is obviously in GPS and also submarines. That can be a very strong driver, but it seems Europe defense is really reactive, meaning now Germany buying anti-missile defense because of the Russia situation. So versus forward thinking, and being a subsidizer of R&D requires forward thinking. And maybe it's to Europe's detriment that it's been such a safe place for such a long while. But what I'm really curious is there a defense, academia, startups mechanism that you can at least get significant funding, right? It actually is, the government is always a larger funder than the private sector, and look at the government as kind of a force multiplier possibly on the private sector. But are there such programs?
You want to go ahead?
So I think yes. So there are such programs. I would band together space and defense, right? Space is another sector that governments in Europe are investing in. One example in Spain, and that's specific. So I think Spain is very strong or has several teams and experts on quantum communication. So on all of this European quantum communication infrastructure program, Spain is very well positioned. We'll be doing very interesting deployments, one of them in space. So probably we hear more tomorrow from Ispasat. We are also part of that environment, right? So that is a very good example on how we can leverage resources to fund part of the R&D. And the more interesting part for me is that is not just a grant, right? So that is a contract, there is execution, there is someone that is taking that at the output. And that is something that I've been advocating a lot, also with the European Commission at the beginning when this program was being established, is that a lot of these funds, as a startup, I don't want the money as a grant. I want you to give me a contract and deploy some stuff, and you push me when I'm not doing the right things, not just give me some grant money and report a few documents that, you know, some reviewers will stuff. So I think that those programs exist in space and defense. We, as a company, we are engaging in some of those, actually. And on the funding side, just to complement, actually, it went over the time, but we're announcing a new round also for Quside today. Funding is there. It just probably in Spain is a little bit harder to get it, or it takes a little bit more of the effort. But it's there. There are companies and funds that, you know, are taking that long-term approach and backing these efforts, the hardware, in quantum, in cybersecurity, in quantum-inspired computation, and the rest. So.
I think we've got time for one more question probably before we go on to the next group. So, Thierry.
Thank you all for your different reactions. I'd like to finish off on one thing. So you all talked about Spain and the benefits of Spain. Spain in the context of Europe, and touches a little bit on what Stephanie was talking about. What are some of your, if I had to say, one advantage that you see for Spain, but also one concern in this broader picture? How can Spain either benefit from that wider European picture, or what are some of the concerns you have in terms of how it'll fit with the rest of the European picture?
I can say very quickly my take, or are you?
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So to me, it's very hard to think about this development from the perspective of Spain, Germany, France. So taking a fragmented European approach, I think, is the wrong way to compete globally. So I know it's happening, but I don't think that is the way. And we're finding those challenges when going to contracts because of the fragmentation in Europe at the national level. So I would like to see more European level engagements on the industrial side. And I think there are, but yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think one takeaway from this discussion is that we advocate for more integration, and not only within Europe, but also with our allies outside Europe. So, because, I mean, quantum technologies are difficult, so we need all the brain power from all the people we can gather in a big coalition or alliance to move this forward. And then regarding the opportunities for of Spain, well, I would say that some pretty amazing things are happening here. And I think we have demonstrated our solidity and power in the quantum realm. So also on that note, I'm also hoping to see from our government a very strong and solid national quantum strategy on par on our European colleagues, for example, France. So yeah, those are my views on this question.
Do you both have anything to add, or are we?
Yeah, so I would just say that, just to add that, I mean, Spain is part of Europe, and what we do here is necessarily connected with the rest of Europe, at least, not to say with the rest of the world, but at least in Europe. And we can play a good role in some areas to provide new technology. And I think so there are two aspects. One is on the vendor side, all of us are startups selling equipment or selling technology or know-how. But then we have the other side of the equation, which is the users. We need to make sure that all of our economy is quantum ready, so that all of our big banks or our big organizations can really benefit from this. And I think we can help to that. And it's a question of making sure that this becomes visible, that people are really interested and motivated. But all within at least the European ecosystem. We cannot do it alone. It has to be in the European system.
A last word from you, Marc.
Yeah, just to complement one last quick comment. I'd say that Spain, if there is a challenge in Spain, I would say, is in terms of offering competitive packages, competing with offers that might be offering a job position in the US or in the north of Europe. That definitely, it's a challenge when you have to bring people to a lab to work on certain things physically there. So that's something that I think definitely we should all reconsider and try to benchmark in a different manner. Because on my side, I don't have that issue that Carlos has, because all my team works on software, so I just hire them wherever they are, and we all work remotely. But when you have to bring people to one place, then that becomes an additional difficulty, I think.
Well, look, thank you all for sort of bringing us down into the local ecosystem. And I hope we'll keep these questions going for the next day or so, day and a half. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really interesting.